Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today for Phillipsburg Free Public Library's January Take and Make craft. So this month we are going to be making snowflake wall art. If you picked up one of our kits, that kit should contain this wooden palette plaque, some newspaper, a snowflake stencil, 2 foam brushes, some Mod Podge, and some blue paint. Now, the first step for this is to cut your newspaper into strips. I've already done that with mine. So I've got them right here. And you're gonna take your Mod Podge and the 2-inch foam brush. So the first step is to put a thin layer of Mod Podge across where you're gonna put your newspaper, and then lay the newspaper across it. Make sure you're smoothing it out so that there aren't any little bubbles or ripples in there. Okay, so again, just dip it in there a little bit. You don't want to go too heavy, but you want to make sure that there is enough Mod Podge on there that your newspaper is going to adhere to it. Okay, so once you've put your Mod Podge on there, just take this, place it on top, and then smooth it out. Okay, and you're going to do that until you cover the entire palette. I'm not going to take you through the whole process of me doing that, but once you've covered your entire palette with newspaper using that Mod Podge, you just want to give it enough time to dry and completely, maybe like 20 to 30 minutes. Once you've covered your wooden plaque with the newspaper and everything has dried, you're going to cover it with another layer of Mod Podge on the top. So again, don't overdo it, but make sure that you're covering it completely. The Mod Podge that we have included is a satin finish. So let's see. So again, cover the whole thing. You're going to need to let it dry completely before you move on to the next step of using that snowflake stencil to paint your snowflake on there. And you may want to have some tape on hand in order to hold that stencil in place. In my case, I'm planning to use painter's tape so that it will hopefully come off nice and easy without tearing any of the newspaper on here. And kind of the interesting thing here, if you did take one of our take and make kits for this, just like real snowflakes, each snowflake stencil is unique. So no one's going to have the same exact snowflake design to stencil onto their piece of wall art here. And if you're doing this at home just with your own supplies, you know, you could find a snowflake stencil, or you could just paint freehand if you're feeling brave. I personally am not that brave. I'm going to be using one of our stencils myself. So again, once you've finished painting this plaque with the Mod Podge layer on top, I would say give it at least half an hour to make sure that it's totally dry and you're not going to have trouble removing the stencil if you're going to be taping it on here to hold it in place. Okay, so finish that. Wait a half an hour, and in just a moment I'll show you how to do the snowflake stencil portion of this project. Once the top layer of Mod Podge has dried on your wooden palette here, what you're going to do is take the snowflake stencil that was included in the craft kit, and you may want to use some tape. As you can see here, I've used a little bit of painter's tape to hold it in place. Take your smaller foam brush and your blue paint here and dip it in there. You don't want to use too much here, so you might want to, oh, there we go. You might want to use even like the lid or a little bit of paper towel or something to kind of squeeze it out so that you're not overloading it with too much of that blue paint here. And then you're just going to paint over that stencil to get a nice little blue snowflake shape. So I would probably work from the outside in to make sure that the blue paint isn't going to go underneath the stencil. That way you get a pretty clear snowflake shape. So take your time with this part. Okay, and once you've filled in that stencil, you're going to very, very carefully peel that tape off. Be careful not to get any of the blue paint outside of the stencil area. As you can see, my fingers are quite messy here, so I'm trying not to use my left hand to lift this up. So carefully lift it up, and there you go. You have a lovely piece of snowflake wall art that you can hang in your home. Thank you so much for joining us today for our January Take and Make craft. I hope you enjoyed it, and we would love to see how your final product turned out, so please feel free to share some photos in the comments, and we hope that you will join us next month for our February Take and Make. We'll be announcing that soon. In the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your January, and we'll see you next month.